Hey guys, week 13 of the build. This week we'll be finishing the mast, the boom, the yard, and I need to start shaping those foils. If I can't achieve this week, it's gonna be very tight to get this boat in the water still in April. So I better start working. And as you can see, I've closed the box mast now. Both white staves are on. And before I go on, let me explain something, okay? Just quickly. As you can see, I used shims to keep the mast with desired curvature. But the biggest shim there is 8 millimeters. And let's say you don't use any shims. The biggest or the maximum deviation you would get on your mast would be 8 millimeters, which is absolutely nothing for a mast, okay? This is just so that I could say that I showed you a way to get the right shape. Doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, even if you clamp this without shims, probably the aluminium straight edge also will give a bit, so you will have less than 8 millimeters deviation at the top of the mast. Just so you guys have an idea what I'm talking about, see the difference between this stave and the aluminium straight edge? That would be the maximum deviation from the plans that you would have on a mast. That would mean nothing. You can have like 10 mil, 20 mil, doesn't matter. As long as you put that deviation in only one plane, like from bow to stern, that it's irrelevant, okay? So you guys, you just choose. You can do this, you can do the mast on the floor if you want, wrap it with tape instead of clamps, anything, it doesn't matter. It will still be straight, okay? Just make sure that you keep a line so you have a deviation only in one plane and not on both, because then it gets a bit tricky. And now let's trim this flush with the narrow staves. And now that this is trimmed, I will use the belt sander to get this a bit smoother. There's some lumps here, epoxy from the gluing process that did not allow the router to go flush. So belt sander, and then I'll round this. So the mast is clean now, and since I grabbed the belt sander, I cleaned the boom as well. Now I'm going to put it on all the edges, here and here. And the maximum radius you can put on this is the thickness of one of the staves. Because if you do a bigger radius than the 12 mil here, then you'll start cutting the glue joint. So here would be a 12 millimeter maximum radius, and here a 4, because a 4 millimeter plywood. Okay guys, we've had a power outage, so it's a bit dark, but I'm not going to do anything special. Just going to coat the spars with unthickened epoxy. So see you soon. Okay, so I have managed to apply 2 coats of epoxy yesterday during the power outage, and I'm going to leave it at that. I won't apply the 3rd coat. But I did realize this morning when I got in the workshop, I did screw up big time again. The mast is supposed to have a taper here at this end, and I didn't do that at all. And that would have been a lot easier when this was a square. Now that I have a 12 millimeter round there and fully coated, yeah, well, gonna have to do it anyway. Okay, that's the taper done and rounded. I will recoat this with epoxy while I'm doing the glass cloth here on the mast, because this needs to have some glass around the mast at the same height as the mast goes through the mast partner. So at that time I'll do the glass cloth and recoat this. So it's not enough to read the manual 10 times. You need to follow the instructions step by step so you don't forget anything. If you do like me, go forward and back, and you know, stuff like this happens. Now I have to drill the holes on the spars. This is the mast, the front of the mast. I'll drill 2 holes here. The boom on the small end, it usually only takes 1 hole, but I'm going to do 2, similar to what I've done on the goat. And this is the fat end of the yard, and that takes 2 holes as well. Okay, so that's 20, 45. I'm going to clamp a piece of wood there, and that will prevent the wood from splintering on the other side when the drill goes through. Okay, now I'll go to a 10mm drill bit. I will fill these holes again with epoxy. Then I will put the glass, and once that's dry I will re-drill this at 6.5mm, so that there is no chance that any water can go in the wood. These are now ready. Can pour some epoxy in there. And by the way guys, I went out and bought some more epoxy, because the kit I bought 2 weeks ago, just the 1 kilo, or last week, was already, well, nearly empty. There was only 300 grams left, and I still have the foils to do. So I had 1.5 kilos left of epoxy here in the workshop, and I bought a kit right at the start, 6.5 kilos. That's 5 plus 1.45, not 7 as I mentioned in the first video, with 6.5 kilos. So 1.5 plus 6.5, that's 8. The 1 kilo I bought last week is almost gone. I actually put it in here now, and so that's nearly 9 kilos. There's not much left to do other than the foils. So let's see how much I use in the end. And by the way guys, this is not full, okay? I just poured all the epoxy I had from the last week's kit and this week's kit into this container. So that's about 1.5, 1.6 kilos of epoxy there, and fast hardener and the slow hardener. I didn't mix these two. So there you go. Okay, now just let it cure. Guys, you don't have to do this. You can just drill a hole, I don't know, 8mm, 10mm hole, and then with a little brush and just cover the inside of the hole with epoxy, okay? This is just, well, again, it's just me being me. Okay, while we wait, let's have a look at the foils template. You have to print, if you've got a PDF file, you have to print your template. You can't just print and use it as is. You have to make sure that this line here, after you print it, is 126.4 millimeters. Okay, so in my case I printed it at 85%, keeping aspect ratio of course, and that came out perfect. This edge of the plywood is the factory edge, so it's straight, or at least should be straight. Right, so these are the blanks I glued a couple of weeks back. If you didn't see that, I'll try to leave a link here or here to that video. Now we need to mark a curve on the blanks before we start shaping them. This will be the trailing edge. I'm actually going to leave it like this because I want a bit of hardwood still on the trailing edge. It's not much, but I'm going to use a 9mm drill bit to drill this hole here. And I'm using a blade, a fine-tooth blade. That's for metal, I think. That's one done. So how do we go about shaping the foils? Well, I'm going to show you how I did it on my Goat Island Skiff's foils. Got the template there. Okay. Now this has to be as straight as possible, okay? Now that edge lines up there. And look at that, perfect. Now we need to do it on the other end as well. Make sure the trailing edge is the edge that you've cut the curve. Now set this to in small increments. I've got like, that's 1/2 mil. And I'm going to start in long strokes from one end to the other, complete length, okay? Get the template there, okay, push it towards the blank. Look, it's hitting it there, see? If I push through, see? Because it's too big here, you can still see on the line there, see? So I need to remove this bit here. And over here still you can sometimes just see the marks, look, see? Okay guys, there's something very important that I forgot to mention. On this profile, there is a midsection which is flat. It says on the manual. And although I don't exactly know where it starts and where it stops, but there's a flat section. So you need to keep that flat. Do not go with the plane or with the sander over to that flat area, because you will need it once you turn the foil upside down or to the other side to shape the other side. You need a flat surface to press against the working surface. If you don't have a flat surface, you won't be able to shape it correctly. Maybe Michael can add a couple of lines to the templates, like here and on the other side, saying exactly where the flat section starts and where it stops. So we can put lines here and we know we cannot go there with the plane or the sander. Right, now I've got a bunch of high spots here on this edge, obviously, but I don't want to put a belt sander here. It might screw it up. It just eats too much, so, or the planer. So I'm gonna use this long block, and I'm gonna try and do it like this. Don't round this edge here. I've done it just on the first like 10 inches or something, and the same here, so that if this is halfway up or something and you run aground, if you hit this, you don't want this to be sharp here, okay? Pedro, this dude, he gave me a bunch of glass cloth offcuts and leftovers he had from his Got Talent skiff, and guess what? There's enough cloth here. This piece is enough for the rudder, and now this piece is more than enough for the dagger board. So thanks, Pedro. And now I need to cut a few pieces for the bottom of the foils, for the tip of the boom, yard and the mast. Let's have a look what we've got here. It was a bit windy outside, so I had to come in the workshop. I have cut the bits for the spars and masts. I'm gonna cut a few pieces so I can glass the ends of the tips of the foils. And this is round this way and that way, so I'm going to show you how you should cut the cloth so you can make this easier. So we need to cut this at 45 degrees with the cloth weave. By cutting the cloth 45 degrees with the weave, you can make it wider or longer, and this will allow us to curve the cloth in two directions. Alright, so let's start this. First, I want to put one of these little pieces right here, and you'll see how this is going to shape to this round. Look at that. Perfect. See, look at that shaping. That's absolutely amazing, isn't it? I mixed 40 grams of epoxy to glass both tips, and that's what's left. So can probably get away with 30 grams. It took me about 5 hours to shape those foils and glass the tips. Could be worse, I guess. Okay, the holes have been filled with epoxy. I have sanded down now the tips of the spars so I can apply the glass cloth here at the tips. But before I do that, I still have a couple of tasks to do at the other end of the mast. First, I'm going to mark the distance between the mast step and the deck, which in this case is 350. Okay, now I will put some glass cloth 3 or 4 inches on either side of this line to prevent some wear and tear here on the masts where it rubs against the mast partner. Second task, I need to cut a bit here on the mast step because the bottom of the boat where the mast step is goes slightly up, so this needs to be sloped as well, and according to the plans I need to take 6 millimeters off of that. Now make sure you do this on the front face of the mast. This has to be in the same face as you've drilled the holes at the tip of the mast, okay? Okay, and we can now mix some epoxy. That is overlapping the top. Now let's go back to the mast. See if we can feel this weave a bit more now that the wood has soaked in some epoxy. Okay, now I'm going to glass the rudder, but I need to clean that tip that I've glassed earlier. Okay, so I'll try to use the same system as I did when I built my Goat Island skiff foils. I just put this long piece here, which will allow me not only to clamp this to the table if I need to, but also makes it easier for me to handle the foil. "120 grams of epoxy." Okay, so in about hour, maybe an hour, I'll come back and fill the weave. Okay, a couple of situations here, guys. First, I did apply the second coat of epoxy trying to fill the weave, but the camera didn't record it, so sorry about that. Second situation, I left the dagger board, not the rudder, just the dagger board here in the shade, and by the time I returned, the shade had moved and this was now fully exposed to sunlight. What happened is a lot of bubbles formed in there, and regardless of what I tried, work epoxy in there and all that, but I just can't get rid of this. They were a bit bigger, now they look slightly better, but still bubbles that I did not need. Nothing I can do about that now, so well, it is what it is. Don't leave your epoxy in the sun. Guys, I have a video dedicated exclusively to shaping and finishing the foils. I filmed that when I was doing the Goat Island Skiff foils, which is exactly the same, just a bit wider than this, and you can see that video here, I think. Okay, time for some sanding. I need to clean the end of the spars and see if I still have time for the foils as well. Okay, now the foils. Remember that this edge here needs to be finished sharp, okay? So I'm gonna take the biggest with the 80 grit and then I'll use a long block to keep this sharp. Wow. This bit here I'm rounding because of what I said to you earlier. If you run a ground and the board is a bit up, if you hit this, you don't want it to be sharp, okay? But that's only about 10 inches. From there to there, it needs to be really sharp, okay? Okay, that's the little bubbles there. Guys, it's okay if you hit the cloth while you're sanding. We will have to apply another coat of epoxy in here, very thin one, but that's precisely to make sure there's no cloth exposed. And then it will be sanded with a 300 grit. But that I'll have to leave for next week. So guys, see you soon.